DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We're joined now by Weber State football coach Eric Kjar. Eric, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good. I am really curious to talk to you. You were a high school football coach.
You did in a former life to have to deal with PK every day?
Come on.
Oh, nice.
Have you ever asked yourself that question?
And yes, he drops to his knees and praises the Almighty.
Oh, man.
Sorry, PK.
I'm used to it.
Yeah, me too. See, people don't know. People don't know. They just don't know. Oh,
they don't understand your plight of what you've had to deal with in life.
Jeez, my plight.
Hey, I got back at him, though, DJ. For years, I sat in the sands and screamed, replace the coach.
He did. He did. Andy would send anonymous emails all the time that I had to track down through like an IP address that were coming from him.
When you lost that game once every other year, he was furious.
He lost 10 games at corner. What the freak?
10 more than we wanted to, that's for sure.
Yeah. So what is the biggest change? You're used to the rhythm of the high school season, and you had a powerhouse, and you had it rolling, and now you go to Weber State, and, man, it's older kids, it's newer rules, it's NIL. What has been the biggest adjustment, the thing where you're like, I have really got to get my arms around this?
More than anything, like day-to-day operations of like running a college football program, there's quite a bit of difference between that and a high school program, and just trying to learn as much as I can and lean on people that have been through it before. And, managing rosters is probably the biggest one. And then trying to figure out some of the NIL stuff, like that's probably not going to be a huge reality. We do some of it for sure. And then just, organizing things from like a recruiting standpoint for our assistant coaches, areas, what we're looking for, needs, like traits we're looking for in players at certain positions, all those types of things. Everybody thinks I was already probably doing that recruiting part at Corner Canyon, but not.
I've always thought that other stuff that you speak of, that's different. But when you're devising a game plan, that coaching is coaching. Do you see that, or is coaching at this level much different from what you have been doing?
I think that part's probably the most similar part of the whole thing, the actual football aspect of it, like teaching, coaching players, especially from a scheme standpoint, what you're looking for, like running practice and stuff like that. That part was, been the easiest transition of the whole thing. I think that's, like you said, the game planning, installing scheme, teaching the day-to-day, having accountability at practice and pushing kids to, just be better. That part was, the easiest part, probably the most natural part of what I think I bring to the table as a coach.
I'm curious about assessing these guys in the transfer portal, because we see all these guys leaving Power 4 schools and even, Group of 5, or I guess with the Pac-12, Group of 6 schools now. And so you would think at a quote-unquote lower level there'd be a lot of talent available. But I would just, whenever I talk with people about that, I think the thing you always have to mention is, hey, there are future NFL players running around in the big sky. That's really clear. And on top of that, you got to be able to measure, the heart and the work ethic, and you still have to get better. So there are guys who on paper look like they should really be able to help you, and at the same time, you really got to be careful you get the right guys. How do you assess that, especially when you're doing it for the first time?
That's really the hardest part, because I think the more you dive into the portal, especially at our level, I think you run that risk a little bit. Some kids are looking to finish their career, playing more and having an opportunity to play, and like Devin Browns is that way. Some kids are just looking for another chance, and you don't know what their what baggage they might have, or, why they're in the portal, or what's happened previously in their playing career that's, put them in this position. And so you're trying to evaluate all that stuff, and that's a slippery slope, because you just don't know. You talk to other coaches or coaches where they've been or that are in their program or that were in their they were in their program, and they tell you things, but you still are really taking it's a risk for sure. Every time you take a kid, in my opinion, out of the portal just because you're not 100% sure what you're going to get. And then you're looking at, how well will they fit into the culture you're trying to establish in your program, like what that's going to look like, their fit. Because like talent-wise, I think that part's the easier part to really evaluate. It's just when you start getting down into the culture-wise, how they fit your position group and all those other aspects, any off-field issues, whatever. Like that's the scary part because that part's probably the most important thing you're looking for.
You mentioned Devin Brown. Remember him when he was playing for you at corner, and then he's gone on Ohio State, Cal, and now he's coming back. It's kind of a weird situation to reunite with his high school coach, but that's what we have here. But you also got other guys, Tisdale, McCollum, Duran. Where's it stand as far as the quarterbacking?
Yeah, I'm surprised Devin wanted me to coach him again. I didn't know how much he likes that the first time, but yeah, it's been fun having him back, and it's been just his approach, his attitude, and everything else. He's so coachable and listens, and just been great. Like in our program already here, just taking a business-like approach, handles himself the right way. And then our other quarterbacks, like Cash, is really, really talented. Player from Texas who probably, he had a little incident with his hand last year, else he probably would have played, I think, significant reps last year. And then because of that injury, Kingston was able to play quite a bit last year and had some good games and had a really, really good game against Northern Arizona, their last game of the year. And then DJ's coming from a junior college, and a pass scheme has been really kind of new to him based off what they were running before, but he's picked it up really, really well. We've been super happy with him through the spring in his role. He's been great.
One thing I've heard former Weber State coaches say, a couple of them have said it. Dave Arslanian used to scream it from the rooftops. There are a lot of skill players. Guys blossom late. Maybe guys don't get the right coaching. Guys are they're not in the right system. He said you can find skill players, and those are a lot of times the players that you see moving on from the Big Sky to the NFL. He said, but man, it's pretty clear what's happening at the line of scrimmage. Everyone can see when one kid starts pushing another kid around. He said finding linemen at this level is really tricky. And I would think in the transfer portal, where if anyone starts having tape like that, they're gone in a heartbeat. How easy has it been to find linemen on both sides of the ball?
That's been, like, you hit it right on the head. It's really difficult. Big bodies are like at a premium right now, just in general in college football, and if you're even average at this level, you have value. Like at the highest levels of football, like they'll come in and scoop you up for $300,000 and $400,000 to come be a depth piece at a Power 4, Power 5 type school. And we can't match anything like that, but that's really the reality. There's two kids that left here that have done that, that were here this winter, and I think that because that's what everybody's looking for. Everybody, like you had mentioned with Coach Arcelani, and that piece is so important in football. And those guys are just getting scooped up at the highest levels. So you really got to try to find guys that are getting overlooked, that you feel like can develop and learn quickly, that you can plug in and play like probably before they're ready, honestly, like at this level now with how it's gone. But the best thing we can do to really combat that is to try to do a better job at the high school level, bringing in good kids and building depth within our program. So when we do lose a few of those kids, we have some pieces in behind it that we feel good about.
I'm wondering if that you can just do like what UVU basketball. We've spoken to their coach Todd Phillips several times over the years. There's a kid like the kid Welling who played at corner. I think he went to Irvine, and then he moves up to UVU and he plays well. I always thought he was under recruited. I saw him play a ton in high school, but so then he goes on to what I think it was Clemson. And Todd Phillips just rolls with it. He's like, okay, that's the way of the world now. So rather than sit here and whine about it, we understand that's probably going to happen. So we're going to embrace it, and we're going to go out and get the best kids that we can get. We'd love for them to stay, but if they don't, then we just replace them with the best kids we can get. And the machine just keeps rolling, and it becomes like an assembly line. And they've had some really good seasons here of late. I'm wondering if you might end up taking that approach. If a kid leaves, as you just said, $300,000 or $400,000 for a depth piece, so be it. We'll just go get some other kids that are just as good, and we'll develop them. If they stay, great. If not, we'll replace them.
100%. You really have to embrace it at this level. Because it's a reality. It's you're not you're gonna turn around in December and you're not keeping all your kids for sure, and that's just reality of what it is. And it's just like you said, some of these other coaches have done a great job of understanding that and working around it. If you understand that and that's a reality, you can do some things within your program to try to help put you in a situation where it's not going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you either way, but it's not going to be as bad of a blow to you. And then just trying to find other players too once that does happen.
It seems like so much of football has gone to measurables, right? There's a lot of NFL draft talk now, and they're criticizing guys for having short arms, and you're like, okay, maybe you didn't give up a sack for a year and a half. I mean, at some point, what does it matter, right? But I wonder for the high school kids who, and they want to play at Utah or BYU, if you're going to get hurt on the back end, Eric, why not get helped on the front end? I mean, the coaches at Utah, the coaches at BYU, now the coaches at Michigan. Can you just walk out of the Utah high schools and just say, they think you're an inch too short, they think your arm is 2 inches short, come to Weber State, we will get you better. And when you don't give up a sack, they're going to notice. It goes back to the point Dave said. He's like, it's not hard to see when one kid's shoving another kid all over the field. You want him. And I wonder if that can give you an edge on the front end, even though like PK says, it's going to hurt you later on.
Yeah, and that's really we've even encouraged some of the kids we took out of the portal this year. We even said, hey, your best option is probably to come here for a year and play at a high level, and then we may be losing you next year, but you've improved your stock, and teams have for whatever reason, like you said, it's all measurable stuff, have decided to pass on you. But now because you played and had a great season in a really good FCS conference, you've boosted that and you're getting what you want. Anyway, it's just a year later, but you've also got a lot of experience. I mean, being here and playing in a year in a great conference is going to definitely help that player and put themselves in a good position down the road. And I think embracing that side, just like you said, is really, really important to what we're doing. You guys are pretty smart. You guys have a lot of this stuff down. You guys are on your game.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a long, long time, I guess.
Well, you're on your game, too, because the answer you gave was just a lot like the answer Bronco gave. That was very similar to what Bronco said. And he's at a slightly different spot in the food chain. But unless you're at the very top or the very bottom, the issues are the same. Yeah,
they really are. And just because it's going to keep going up, unless you're really at the top end of it.
Yeah,
like probably Michigan is, and some of those two power conferences like the SEC and the Big Ten. You're going to always be playing with those rules. In my opinion, it doesn't matter where you're at along that food chain.
I read that you felt like the defense is ahead of the offense, which is not necessarily surprising at this point along the timeline. And, this summer they have opportunities to get better on their own, and then you'll reconvene for August to prepare for the season. But I also saw where you said that maybe a little concern on the front seven defensively. You want more physicality?
Yeah. And I think I love what we're doing from a schematic standpoint. I think our defensive coordinator, Coach Fowler, and our defensive staff have done a really, really good job in the spring. And they make things from a scheme standpoint really hard on you offensively. And I think if we can add some physicality pieces here in the late spring, heading into summer, that's just going to enhance and improve our defense to a level where I think we can be one of the top tier in the conference. So that's going to be something we'll focus on as we move here forward in the next month. I think we have the scheme piece and a good understanding of what our players and their assignments are defensively, and executing that scheme. Now, if we can just add some physical pieces a little bit more in key positions, I think that group's going to be really, really good.
Eric Kjar joining us, Weber State football coach. I'm curious because I know that all the coaches here know each other, and in many cases have coached together and have gone over film together. You were telling us earlier, like sometimes you got to play offensive linemen before they're ready. So I'm wondering how much that informs a defensive coordinator. Like, one of the things, aside from the physicality, the communication piece on the offensive line is important. So let's hit them with a few exotic blitzes, because all these big sky schools may have to play some guys a little early. And if they're not, if they're not communicating, if they're not passing guys off with twists and stunts and whatever exotic zone blitzes you come up with, maybe you get some big plays defensively, because they got the same they're dealing with the same problems you're dealing with.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Just the overall ability to develop and get guys that are really ready and have had a ton of experience, which we don't have on our offensive line. We have one kid that played a decent amount last year and started some games, but we're relatively young. So to counter that, or also game planning wise, I'm sure we're going to see, and teams across the conference, and I know our staff will definitely dial some things up that can make it really difficult just in protection and protection rules from an offensive standpoint that are gonna make it hard on them. And we faced a lot of that this spring too, but that kind of stuff's going to help us. We saw some really things that are tough schematically throughout the spring, but seeing those things and being able to coach and teach your kids how to pick those up, how to pass that off. Like you said, communication's huge in that, and being able to get them doing that early, where we're seeing a ton of that early, is just going to help our kids. But, yeah, you're 100% right. I think you'll see that from an offensive line play part of it. Defensive's kind of attacking a little bit more, and then that's your job as an offensive coordinator, is trying to scheme things up and make those assignments a little bit easier on your guys as well, from a quarterback and a offensive line protection standpoint.
Well, I've heard stories probably going back 15, maybe even close to 20 years, of that Eric Kjar in the weight room at the high school level. And you were jacked, and you were impressing kids who are 14 and 15 years old. Whoop-de-doo. I want to know how you stack up with 20, 21-year-olds and those types, because it's a different climate for you now, big guy.
Yeah, I'm definitely, probably more like mid to low tier in the strengths category now. It's a humbling experience for sure from a strength standpoint, but I'm in there getting after it with them and try to push. And I really love that opportunity to get in there with our athletes and be able to be involved with them and connect with them on a different level that I don't think I get to as often as a head coach, because you're a lot more busy and you don't get to spend as much time with your players. But that part's been great. But yeah, I've definitely taken an ego hit up here for sure, PK.
You out there running with the DBs and the
I
wide
cannot
receivers?
run anymore. My knees have gotten to a point where if I try to run, I can run that day, but I pay for it for 2 weeks after. I'm pretty stationary now, other than I like to lift with them and stuff. But age, I'm going the other way. I'm getting into a category where I'm lifting with stronger kids, but I'm aging. I hit 47 this year, and the strength numbers are coming down anyway. So it's bad in two ways.
It's only going to get worse, big guy. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. Well, we appreciate the time, and it's interesting to talk to you as you try to figure out how the pieces of the puzzle fit together at Weber State, Eric. Good luck. Enjoy what little downtime you get here before you get into camps, and then it's back into I assume you're running a full set of camps up there.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're excited. We got our 7-on-7 camp coming up, and then our Best of the West individual camps. So we're excited about those and excited to be able to evaluate some kids in the area too.
All right. Well, thanks for a few minutes. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again as the season gets closer.
Yeah, you guys have a good one. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
All right. There's Eric Kjar, Weber State football coach, and the Big Sky. Everything's changing, PK. Southern Utah Tech coming into the league. They've always had the rivalry with Idaho State. So a lot of people in the Big Sky in the same area looking for the same kind of players. Highly competitive in its own right.
Oh, big time, man. You can argue as far as competitiveness for talent and all this stuff and everything that goes involved in it. And I'm an old Big Sky guy. I went to NAU out of high school, so I go back to the Big Sky a long time and following a long time. And obviously I'm going to follow Weber State about 1,000 times more this year because of the personal connection. And it's going to be really intriguing. A guy who literally had a 90% winning percentage in high school or at the high school level. What does he do? And I know he brought up the recruiting thing. People thought he was recruiting. You know, I've spoken to him about it, and he felt like, okay, kids come here and they're coming. And I can reel off 6, 7 kids that moved in to play for him, and he always felt like, hey, I can take my guys who are in the boundary, and I'm not recruiting, and I could still win. And he did have it a couple years ago when the one Kasuga kid got injured.
Not just
his
Kasuga.
backup quarterback who was in the area, they still won the friggin' state title. So he has a lot of confidence in his ability, and I'm so intrigued to see how it translates. I think, and I have a huge bias, I'll be the first to admit it, that I think it's going to translate well. But talking to guys like Riley Jensen who know about it, way more about it than I do, and current college coaches, because they know of the relationship and I've spoken to them, they think it's going to work. Not just me. Who cares what I think? I'm getting information from guys who are in the profession and every single day.
Riley sounded so much like you when I talked to him. We called a high school football playoff game, and the Weber State News was breaking. I remember we were at Skyline High, and we had a few minutes before the game, and he looks at me and goes, and it was so like you. He goes, you know what Weber State would do if they were bold? They'd go get Eric Kjar. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm all about it. Do it. I think that'd be super interesting. I like stories. That's an awesome story. He goes, did it be bold? I hope they want to do it. I said, do you think they're going to? He goes, I don't know, but I really hope they want to do it. You know, and they wanted to do it. So
they did.
Here we are.
There's a new energy there on the campus because they got a new basketball coach. I understand will come on tomorrow. And so it's funny, they got new basketball and football in the same season.
Yep, and as we've seen, man, things can change really fast in this era. I mean, Eric was just documenting guys coming and going, and we, chuckle when kids play at 3 schools, but that's basically what he's talking about. There's somebody in the portal, and maybe there was a coaching change, or maybe they couldn't play, promises are broken, or whatever, and he's like, come here for a year, raise your stock. Who's to say where you could be a year from now, which that's straight into a 3-school plan right there.
Yeah.
But for that individual kid, for some kids it's an act of desperation, and for other kids it's a good path forward.
Right.
So it just depends on the player.
Yeah.
All right, DJ and PK, Mike Weir, Masters champ, getting ready for the Senior PGA Championship. He's here at 9 o'clock. Stay with us right here on The Zone.
Just a bunch of guys sitting around and talking sports. This is Scotty G and Friends.
Logan Cooley, 2 years ago, is about the time things really started to break that this organization was going to move from Phoenix to Salt Lake City. And now 2 years later, you're in the playoffs. Just what does that feeling feel like for you as a player, knowing that you're going to be playing postseason hockey?
It's awesome. I mean, I think as a little kid, you dream about eventually one day winning the Stanley Cup, and just the experience we're going to gain from being in the playoffs. There's some guys that on our team, I'm one of them that haven't even experienced playoff hockey. And, you watch on TV, just the excitement in the buildings, how intense the hockey is. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be unbelievable. And I'm sure the fans are going to have the Delta Center rocking. And we can't honestly wait to, get started once playoffs start. It's going to be the most fun hockey that, I think I'm going to be a part of.
Catch Scotty G and Friends weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Who wants tickets? It's a Win Tickets Wednesday. Let's give them away right now. We got tickets to see Brit Floyd. That's the Pink Floyd tribute band. They're going to be at the Maverick Center June 6th. Caller 12 right now. 801-575-ZONE. 801-575-ZONE wins a pair of tickets to see Brit Floyd, the tribute band. You do a lot of tribute bands through the years, PK, or you stay away from those?
Like not paying to go see it, but there's a Hennessy's in Torrance. We would go.
Lunch
there.
overlooking the beach with a little music, huh?
Well, it would be like after softball.
Okay.
And like on a Friday, Saturday night, Thursday night type of thing, and so over in the corner they got a little local band that's playing cover tunes basically, and so I would do that. I don't think I'm trying to think if I've ever gone to something where I've paid like a Sand Hollow. They have our email, so we get a lot of we get all their stuff that they send out, right? Because they have it, and then that's the way they do it. And they have a little natural amphitheater over there. I don't know if you've been over there. And they have these shows, you remember the band Bread, by the name of Bread? Soft rock, super soft rock.
Yeah.
Well, they had a cover band, and I didn't see them, and I didn't really listen to Bread, but it caught my eye because I thought it was funny. So they come up with cover band names, and their name was Toast. For some reason, that just made me laugh because obviously it's a takeoff of bread. It's a specific type of bread that you're going to toast, throw it in the toaster, and away you go. So that made me laugh. But a lot of those times, they're really good. And, I've discovered that there's some serious talent out there. I was just talking about it with my wife, a guy that we knew in California. Guy was big time, but he could never get a break.
Yeah.
And so he had to go to in a hospital administration, but he would sing and act, and he just had a big time talent, which, for that stuff, I got zero. And then I knew another guy, I haven't kept up with him, but he was trying to make it in the comedy world, right?
Yep.
And I went to, a couple of his local things, and, it was goofy funny, which I sort of like goofy funny in that way. Like the old comedy show, TV show Cheers. I consider that goofy funny, lighthearted, stupid stuff. And, that's what I enjoy. And so he would do that. And he had a bunch of props like Carrot Top. He'd pull stuff out and make jokes about it, and it would be funny. And he would write songs that were funny in that way. And so it's in my younger days, right? And I'm working for the Daily Breeze, and I'm wondering, where's this going to take me? Mm-hmm. And I was talking to him about it, and, oh, man, I want to do this and this, and I'm waiting for my break to be able to go from there. And he told me, he said, well, basically he got tired of me complaining, and what he said was, the good thing about you is this is your full-time job. I want to break into comedy, and I do some shows here and there, but it's not my full-time job.
Right.
You're already in. And he gave me a little pep talk. He said, just stick with it. Keep working, and things will break. And I remember this conversation, and we're going back, obviously, many years now, and that conversation stuck with me that, hey, I have a foot in the door. I'm in the business. And a lot of guys would trade places with me right now because I do have a foot in the door. Keep staying it. Don't give up. You're working crummy hours. You're doing sometimes crummy assignments, but stay with it, and things will break your way. And he was saying, I got to find a way to get in, and you're already in. Now, I've lost contact with him. I don't know what happened to him. He didn't go on The Tonight Show. I can tell you that. I would have heard that. But I was in. And I relate that and I'm older now, obviously, and I try to impart that upon guys who ask me, guys being gender neutral, about being in the business, and you show up and work as hard as you can in that very job that you have, and things can break your way. Maybe they don't, but I believe they will. And I translate in that to sports. We saw this with a bunch of young guys with the Jazz, and in a kind of a different way, almost like a perverse way, it was fun to watch these kids who came out of nowhere with these 10-day contracts, and all of a sudden they're getting 38 minutes a game, which never would have happened. And that's kind of cool because I can relate to those types of guys. And it'll be interesting to see because these guys put stuff it was a lower level NBA level. We get that. But it was still in the NBA, and they put stuff on tape. And I would think that, and Will Hardy constantly praised these kids, and they seem like they're earnest and they're working. I'm wondering, where it's going to go. And there's several of these guys. We joke about some of their names, but to see, will these guys be able to stick? Well, who cares if from their perspective, if it's not here, so what? If they can stick in the NBA and be on rosters, that would be great. And those guys are toiling in obscurity, and all of a sudden the bright lights are on them. And several of them put up pretty good stats, whether it's legit, probably not to the level that the stats would reflect, but maybe there's something there. And whether they stick here or not, we'll see. It'll be fun to follow if any of these kids 2-3 years from now are still playing in the league.
Yeah. And those stories are all over the place. Now, he wasn't a 10-day guy. He was in the Memphis deal. But Kjar, I mean, he played college basketball at Purdue Fort Wayne. I don't know what percentage of our audience, but it's got to be around 1 or 2, could name the nickname and the league they play in, right?
Well, the nickname is the Lion King.
That's his nickname.
Oh.
It's not the school's nickname. But hey, you go wherever you can to play, and, if you play in a 2,000 or 3,000 seat gym or whatever, the NBA will find you if you can play, and he's 30 and he's still in the NBA. So,
yeah,
those stories are out there.
I would think he has a good chance to stick because it seemed like Will Hardy was, what's that word?
Impressed?
Beyond impressed. It's a fancy word that I don't know. I was going to say like effervescent in his praise.
Ooh, effervescent.
It seemed like he praised him a little bit more than the other guys who were in the similar box, so to speak, of where they were, and his professionalism and putting your head down and go to work. It reminds me now, I most likely would be stunned if he achieved that, but it reminds me of what Jerry Sloan and Phil Johnson and Kevin O'Connor were talking about with Paul Millsap early on. Paul Millsap was not only a second-round pick, he was a late second-round pick, and all he was interested in was coming to work to do that very thing, which was work. And when you look back, relative to his skill and the fact that he was undersized, Paul Millsap had as good a career as anybody when you look at what he had to work with and how, if you're going to look at, name me athletes, man, woman, who got the most out of their ability. Probably Paul Millsap's name isn't going to come on everybody's list, but he's going to come on my list because we watched him.
Yeah, we saw it.
Yeah. And it was fun to see that kid work with nothing else in mind.
But it's a good thing that he had that approach and he had that attitude because he just barely made the team.
Yeah.
Now, once he's there, he plays his way and he's got this huge role. But the decision on the cuts at the end of that year were really close, and Jerry finally leaned his way at the end. And we can have Richard Smith on sometime, and he can tell the story. But Smitty was like, well, it was a close call. And I forget who the other player was. But they were both performing, and there's only so many roster spots. It's just like it's a numbers game. And finally, they're just like, there's just something about him. And so if he's at 85% instead of 100%, maybe he doesn't win that close call, But
right.
He was at 100%. He never said a word. I remember asking a teammate, I can't remember which player said it. He doesn't really talk much around us. And, what's he like? And the guy shrugs, I don't know, he didn't talk much around us either.
Good.
Hey, but if that's the focus it took to make it, and if it's that close a call, good thing you had it.
Absolutely, and we saw that with Brian Russell, too.
He was
Russell
asked
was on the
to
team,
do what
he needed to do, and he did it
for a while.
Yeah.
And when he got his chance, it was like 3 or 4 possessions in a playoff game, and all of a sudden the starting lineup changed. He went out and won a matchup one quarter, and they made the move.
Right, and he was a starter on the finals team, obviously, and I had the opportunity to do a big feature in A1, the front page, not the front page of the sports, but the front page of the paper, and got to know a little bit of his background. And it wasn't an easy situation for him, but he persevered through so much. And what the stories that I was told about what he had to endure, and he did. And that was something that always I admired him for doing. Once I got it at the ground level of his story and spoke to multiple people, including a couple of high school teachers, that was one of the wildest stories that I had ever done in my work, 23 years in newspapers. And the Tribune, this was during the finals when, we couldn't print enough stuff about the Jazz.
Right.
And you guys couldn't broadcast enough
We
stuff
couldn't
about
either,
the
no.
Jazz, right?
The market was consuming every shred of information possible.
And so they tell me, go down to L.A. and do a story on Brian Russell. What do you want me to do? I don't know, figure it out. And they're, well, you're an L.A. guy. Yeah, he lived 2 hours away. You're an L.A. guy. Go do it.
I love that logic. You're an L.A. guy. Have you been to L.A.?
And I was the only L.A. guy on the staff. And so, literally no idea what I'm going to do. And I fly into Ontario because it's way closer than where I live.
Yeah.
I wouldn't fly into LAX with no idea. And go to this high school. And within an hour later, I've got a couple of high school women teachers sobbing, crying, because they're telling me all the stuff that Brian Russell had been through and all the stuff that they helped him through. And the health scare that the one woman, where he ended up spending a lot of time at her house with their family, and how she's just and I'm blown away sitting there. It's like, my gosh, I struck gold. And then I come back. I was down there and I had to cover some other stuff. I was gone for a week. I come back and I go to the practice, or one of their morning practices, and I say to him, can I talk to you? And he just kind of blows me off. And then as he's leaving, I said, well, I just spent 2-3 days at the house. So I forget the woman's name, Kim Williams or something. And he stops in his tracks, just stops. And he says, somebody from media relations will call you, and I want you to come over to my house later today. Just boom. I said the magic name. I mean, he literally stopped in his tracks because he knew I was serious, and that's what happened. And it ended up being a great story.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Mike Weir joins us, Masters champ. He'll be here at the top of the hour. Stay with us.
This is JJ and Alex.
I got this. Travis Yost, our guest. He covers the NHL for TSN.
For the Mammoths, I think they're the fourth best team in the West. I think that they would be a likely favorite against Anaheim. They could be or should be a favorite in a series against Vegas. If the Mammoths close the season as we expect, by goal differential, this is the best team that has ever been on the ice for either the Utah or Phoenix, Arizona Coyotes franchise by goal differential this season right here, right now. This team absolutely should not be thinking we made it to the playoffs. What an accomplishment. At this point, considering how good the Mammoths have been, and I mean that, they really should be thinking, how do we go in and win a round in the playoffs? And I think if you've got Anaheim on the ice, even if you're the road team in that series, that's a matchup the Mammoths should want, and it's one they should win.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 7 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Join Scotty G tomorrow from noon to 3 at RGS Exteriors, 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. PK, we talked about this back in the 7 o'clock hour. West High has a quarterback who is very well thought of, and he was going to Illinois. And then earlier this week he announced, well, I'm not going to Illinois. And it turns out yesterday he said, I'm going to Michigan to play for Kyle Whittingham. Which brings up the question, how big a problem is this going to be for the locals? Adam Schefter posting, it's the first notable quarterback commitment of the Kyle Whittingham era, four-star Kamden Lopati pledging for the 2027 season. 6'3", 220, he can run, he creates all kinds of highlights. He's all over the place. Poor high school lineman trying to chase him down. Good luck with that. But how much damage is Kyle going to do taking local players? Feel like this door has already been opened. I mean, we can all list players who've gone to Alabama and Ohio State and USC, UCLA, Stanford, and Oregon, just on down the line. So it's already happening. Now, Kyle, given his rep and his name, that could accelerate it. Lopati is going to a school that, has got a quarterback going into a sophomore year, and the way quarterbacks transfer, I hesitate to say it's over because some of these kids who've taken off, we've seen them come back, right? We've seen kids leave Oregon and Washington and come back to BYU and play well. So it's not necessarily over, but it does seem in an era when college football is really focused on recruiting in Utah because these schools have won with so many Utah kids on their roster. This just accelerates a trend they already don't like.
Well, I think it's a little different, too. We're not talking about linemen or what have you. We're talking about quarterbacks, and they're a premium. Good quarterbacks do not grow on trees. Great quarterbacks, they don't. And if this kid is a great quarterback, that would impact BYU, Utah State. I mean, how many great quarterbacks have come out of this state and gone elsewhere? Right now we got Maddox Madsen over there at Boise.
Yeah.
So what you can't have, and I even think it's between the schools, I think Utah took a lot of grief that Zach Wilson didn't go there. Right?
Yes.
And then it comes out that, well, they recruited a quarterback and they didn't want to recruit another one, maybe told the kid that was an issue. And so, well, I only want you to recruit one. And then the kid comes and he doesn't make it. And Zach Wilson's over there. Forget about his pro career. He did very well at the BYU level. And, when Cam Rising went down, you were playing a walk-on. And maybe that wouldn't have happened. It wasn't devastating to the program, but, you did have some not up to par seasons for Utah, and maybe that could have been different as far as that goes. So I have to look at it. Yeah, all those places have come in and recruited these kids, but have they recruited quarterbacks?
This is one of the better quarterback classes, and partly it's, Utah's got a freshman, well, now a sophomore up there who played a little bit, and obviously BYU's got a guy who played a lot. But there's 4 or 5 good quarterbacks in this class, and they are all committed out of state. You mentioned Corner Canyon because we had on Eric Kjar. He used to be head coach there, and he's now at Weber State. Mm-hmm. And Kasuga's going to Texas A&M. And trying to think where Bessinger Davis is going to Iowa. Keneal Sweetwine at Skyridge is committed to Colorado. So it's just like one kid after another. Oh, there's a kid at Orem. Where's he going, Yak?
Caden Kawa was going to Alabama. But Sweetwine's
right.
already at Colorado going through spring ball with Isaac Wilson.
Yeah. So, like 5 quarterbacks and, yeah. Now, this is the 2026. Now we're talking 2027 with Lopati. But, the high-profile kids. But, I mean, you've been the king of saying it doesn't matter who you don't have. It matters who you do have. So if you got a good quarterback, and quarterbacks don't really want to sit, and if they do end up sitting, then they end up transferring anyway. So who's to say any one of these kids doesn't bounce back to either one of these schools eventually?
Yeah, and I'm concerned about Kyle picking off a few more kids.
It's more competition, right? There's already a trend established, and it's more competition.
Right.
DJ and PK coming up next. Mike Weir, the Masters champ, now playing on the Senior Tour, the Champions Tour, Senior PGA Championship coming up. Stay with us. Mike Weir next right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did you have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
I'm here on the job site with Dale, who's a framing contractor.
Hey, good morning.
Dale traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance for all his business vehicles. We're here where he needs us most.
Yep, they sure are.
We make it easy for him to save on all his insurance needs, all in one place, with coverage that fits his business and bottom line. Oh, I shouldn't have looked down.
It's all right.
We're so far up here.
Look at me. Take a deep breath.
No, I'm good. So good.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.